What you guys, got another video here for you on 3 ways to clear the motherboard CMOS, which is resetting your BIOS. Now this is quite an easy task to do, but I just wanted to make this video to clear a few things up that some people seem to have issues with when it comes to resetting your BIOS or clearing your CMOS. And that is to do with the clear CMOS jumper, which is down here on this board. They're in different locations on motherboards. They could be an actual button that you actually press to clear the CMOS, and they can also be this little jumper here, which is what you can short with a pair of tweezers or a screwdriver, and it's that simple. So a lot of people are suggesting that when you hit this with a screwdriver like this, that you need to remove the BIOS battery because the BIOS battery is holding a charge and it will not clear the CMOS. This is simply not true. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet, and you just have to read the user manual, and it normally gives you a bit of indication of what to do. So the jumper pin takes place of removing the CMOS battery by temporarily shorting the battery to ground. So when we push these 2 pins here with a screwdriver, it's going to basically clear the CMOS for us without removing the battery. You will need to remove the power from the board, which is something you'll do, but I'll show you how to do all of this in a second. I'm going to show you 3 ways to basically clear your CMOS. Under here is where the CMOS battery is. Now, the CMOS battery can be in different locations also on a motherboard. On this board here, it's underneath this little heatsink here. So once I remove this, you'll see the BIOS battery is underneath here. And basically, the jumper pin is to replace having to remove this particular BIOS battery. You shouldn't have to remove the BIOS battery now. You can do it with the jumper down on this board here. It's a lot more easier than removing the BIOS battery. You can see it's enclosed in this little holder here. But you can remove the battery because in case you need to replace the battery, you would have to remove it. So it has to be removable so you can replace it. So the CMOS battery stands for complementary metal oxide semiconductor. And this is a battery which is called a coin cell battery on the motherboard, and it helps the BIOS or UEFI to store hardware configuration settings. And this is what we're going to do. So always remove the power from the power supply, like I've just showed you right here. And what we'll do is we'll do the jumper pin first, and we'll clear the CMOS using the jumper. And this is probably the preferred method nowadays to clear the CMOS. And then I'll show you the battery method, which is also easy to do, but there's no point in removing the battery if you can just short out these 2 pins here. So I've pulled the power cable out, make sure the power is out. And what we're going to do here is we are going to use our screwdriver to short the 2 pins to ground, and this will wipe any information that was stored. So why would we need to clear the CMOS? The reason why you'd want to clear the CMOS is if you've been configuring your BIOS or UEFI and you've made settings, now the computer doesn't like them and you want to put them back to default settings. You would use the clear CMOS to wipe any information that is stored, and it will go back to default. So I'm holding this onto these 2 pins here and shorting them out with the screwdriver, and you can do this for 10 to 20 seconds, and that should be plenty to clear the CMOS. Now remember, we don't have any power plugged in to the computer, so what we're going to do next is push the power cable back into the power supply here, and I'll power it on, and you would then obviously power on the actual computer. We're using the power button on the case, but we've got this out on the bench. So what we're going to do is use a screwdriver to short the actual start here on here. This is the power switch. So we're going to short this out with a screwdriver like this, and it will also power it on like this. So we can see now the computer is now starting to power up. We don't have a hard drive in here, but that doesn't matter. It will still go to post, and we can now check the screen. So let's go ahead and take a look. I do have a HDMI cable plugged into the computer here, so we should be able to get display and we should see the BIOS. So let me just straighten this up here, and then I'll take you to the screen. It will tell you that the CMOS has been reset, and it should tell you this. Now you might have to wait up to 30 seconds to a minute, and sometimes a little bit longer depending once it detects the signal. So it says no signal here, which is quite normal because we just reset the CMOS. But eventually what will happen is you will get a prompt on the screen telling you that your CMOS has been reset. So we'll just wait for this to populate. And once it finds a signal, you should see an actual signal on the screen here. So you can now see that we can see the screen here. Let me just move up the camera so you can actually see. And you can see that it says clear CMOS information, BIOS has been reset. Please reconfigure your BIOS setup items if needed. And that's it. You've just reset your BIOS. So if you was having an issue, this is a good way to start, especially troubleshooting, or if you've been misconfiguring all of your BIOS and messed it up, you can actually reset it back to a default state by using this method. So that is the jumper pin there method that we use to clear the CMOS. And you can see we left the battery in and it still cleared that CMOS. And there we go. We're at the BIOS screen here, or UEFI screen. And there we go. All the settings have been put back to default. So if you had some configuration done inside here, like overclocks or any sort of voltage settings or anything like that, it would be reset. Now there's also another way, which is called load defaults, and you can click on this one here, which is F7 inside your BIOS, and you can click on this and it will put the defaults back on there as well. So you can use that method as well, and take note of the little arrow. Sometimes there's a button which will have that arrow on the back of it, and you can push that and it would also do it on the actual motherboard itself. And you can see here, load optimized defaults. I'm not going to do it because we've already done it, but if I wanted to, I could use that method. So that's method number 2. Method number 3 would be to remove the battery. So I've removed the kettle lead, we call them in the UK, but the power cable from the power supply. So there's no power to the computer now. And we've got the battery here, which we would need to remove. So I'm going to go ahead and get a screwdriver, but you can use a spudger or some sort of plastic pick tool, depending on what you want to do. These are different. There's normally a little clip here that you can clip and it will pop it out. But this one looks a little bit different. But again, you can easily get these out. They're pretty straightforward. So I can use a clip here to move the battery a little bit, so it gives you a bit of room. And then I can just put the screwdriver down the side here and pop it out. It's very simple and easy to do. So let me just quickly show you. So I'm just going to use this screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver here, and just put this down the side, and then it should pop out like so. Very simple and easy to do. And now we've got the battery out. There is no charge held on there, so it's going to basically wipe any information once the battery's out. You may need to leave this out from 30 seconds, and some say up to a minute to clear any information, but power is always held in capacitors and things like that, which also need to be cleared. So you can use the power button on your case to clear any sort of power that's left behind inside the PC. So I don't have a case here. So what I'm going to do is just short out the power switch pins here. This will drain any power that has been left inside capacitors and things like that to make sure there is no power being held, which could still hold that information. That's important when using the battery method. So I'm just going to quickly do that right now. And this will drain any sort of power that's left out of the system, and the information will then be erased. So now that's done, all we need to do here now is put the battery back, and this will remove any sort of information that was stored on there. Now remember, this method is going to be a little bit more difficult because this one does have an heatsink over the top of it, and there might be a graphics card in there, and there might be some other components on the system, which makes it a little bit more difficult to get access to it. So this is where you can use the jumper pin to short out and remove the information. So I'm going to place in the power cable back into the power supply, and then what we're going to do is use the power switch pins here to power on the system, and we'll see whether the information was wiped successfully. And you should see that same message that we see before with the actual jumper pins. So let's go ahead and power this on. Just going to move the camera down so you can see it here. So we've powered this on now, and we need to do the same thing. We're going to have to wait till we get a signal, and this could be 30 seconds to a minute for it to actually display. So be patient and let it do its thing. I'll quickly move the camera up to the screen here so you can see we're already getting no signal here, and that's normal because we have just erased any information on here. So it's going to take a bit of time. I'll give it a little bit of time for it to find a signal, and you should then see that message that the CMOS has been erased. So we'll just give it a little bit more time here. So I cut about 29 seconds out of the video to speed up the process, and there we go. It's now up on the screen. Clear CMOS information. BIOS has been reset. Please reconfigure your BIOS. Set up items if needed. So that's it. That's how easy it is to reset your CMOS. It's very straightforward and easy to do. And for those people that were told that you have to remove the CMOS battery to use the shorting pins to clear the information because there's a battery in there holding information, as you can see, that's misinformation. You don't need to do that. And the reason why is because we are shorting those pins to ground, and that will clear any information that was stored. And what would be the purpose of having a battery inside the board and having shorting pins? There would be no point having shorting pins if you had to remove the battery as well. Anyway, with that said, I think that's going to be about it. That is 3 ways to clear your CMOS. My name has been Brian from BritecComputers.co.uk. Hope you're having a lovely weekend, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.